When Nintendo, Microsoft, a Sony executive, and Gearbox all start telling you that $80 games are a steal, it's time to ask, who are they really looking out for? Because it sure isn't you. Salam, my name is Mustafa. I am a game developer. I've worked at Treyarch in the past during the development of Black Ops 4. I've also worked at Zwift on the indoor cycling game. Aside from my day job, I currently make indie games on my free time. I published a narrative-driven tower defense game called Nexus Defenders, which is currently on Steam. And I'm also working on a first-person stealth horror game called Beware Tomorrow, which is currently in development. Links to both of them are in the description below. In this video, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the anti-consumer practices that all the major gaming companies are pushing now. But first I want to clarify, just because I talk about the game design or art design or character design or narrative design or any sort of design aspect from the games that these publishers put out, it doesn't mean I endorse their business practices. If I talk about a character or a game and say that the design is pretty good, that doesn't mean I'm on board with everything that the publisher of that game does. We can say this started when Nintendo led the charge with their Nintendo Switch announcement and announced that the prices will go up for everything. The Nintendo Switch 2 will be $450, which is a 50% jump from the Nintendo Switch when it launched. At this point, they're saying their games have variable pricing, but games like Mario Kart World will be $80 at launch and also for the rest of your life. Same for Microsoft. They are upping the price of the Xbox Series X another $100 since it was at launch. Also $80 for brand new titles, but that applies to first party only, though we all know that the third party games will follow suit, and they blame it on rising costs. In a recent interview, former Sony executive Shuhei Yoshida was talking about the increase of price to $70 and $80. He said himself that $70 and $80 games are a steal. He basically says that everything else has gone up in price and video games are late to the party, so it's about time for video games to go up in price. This is anti-consumer framing because it puts the burden on the consumer, who he admit is paying more for everything else, rather than putting the burden on the corporation. And then we get to good old Randy Pitchford, which is the main reason why I made this video. His response just shows how out of touch these executives are. For those of you who don't know, Randy Pitchford is the CEO of Gearbox, and he is known for having no filter when he speaks. Like, they would give him a panel at PAX, and he would say all sorts of crazy things and even sing a song about how bigots are giving him bad reviews on his games. A fan of Borderlands on Twitter, a fan of Borderlands reached out to him and in a polite way pleaded to him not to make the game $80 because it will do poorly. And he gave the most out of touch response, telling the fans that they need to fork over the money anyways. This is no different from when any other executive says something wild and out of touch, like when we're told to get a second job to get a PS3, or when Don Matrick told us that if you don't have an internet connection, you could just get an Xbox 360, or when Doug Bowser told us if we can't afford a Nintendo Switch 2, you could just get a Nintendo Switch. These people are assuming blind loyalty. And you can tell when these executives are completely out of touch and live in another reality that's not our own. Back when I worked at Treyarch, I interacted with a lot of executives. Now, that doesn't mean I met them and had long conversations with them, but I interacted with some, like for example, sending them something or just greeting them. There were a lot of executives that would greet me back, and that's just common courtesy to greet someone back when you're greeted. One executive in particular, Mr. Bobby Kotick. Every time I greeted him, I probably greeted him maybe 2 or 3 times, but I just remember him being like a troll. And I don't mean like an internet troll. I'm talking about one of those trolls that have their hair that stick up and the gem on their belly. He just walked straight past me and didn't even make eye contact. And that just shows you the character of these executives that think they're better than the common man. Also, these executives are making it out as if they need the money, otherwise they will go bankrupt. such as Shuhei Yoshida saying that video games are upping the price a bit late. There are so many examples of games that are hitting record highs. But the reality is, people will draw a line when it comes to the price of entertainment going too high. Just look at Doom: The Dark Age, which just came out, and it's flopping on PC. This is because the game has no multiplayer, it has no map editor, it just has a single player mode, and they're charging $80 for it. Despite the previous two games having great reviews and selling really well, and this new game looking amazing as well, people don't want to fork over the extra money for less value. And that's what these publishers have been doing. They've been giving us less and less value. They want to cut corners. They've been making mediocre games at best. Look at Assassin's Creed Shadows. They want to blame it on inflation and say that they have to raise the price. But look at the forms of entertainment that have raised their price. Look at movie theaters, for instance. Movie theaters have been shutting down left and right. And who goes to a movie theater anymore these days? Movie theater prices have skyrocketed in price, and no one wants to pay that much money for an inferior experience. I need to bring up a statement I made in a video I unlisted. In a previous video, I talked about how I thought GTA 6 would not be $100. And my reasoning was that Rockstar makes most of its money through GTA Online. So ideally, they'd want to get as many people as possible to get GTA 6 so that they can get into GTA Online 2. And then spend more money on the microtransactions. But with all these executives trying to push and push and push to increase the price, I unlisted the video and I said, okay, I was wrong with that one. It's very clear that once Nintendo took that first plunge, everybody else wants to take that plunge as well. There are surveys that show more and more players are playing older games, such as in 2023, 60% of players were playing games that were at least 6 years old. Only about 8% of players were buying brand new games. And this just shows how inaccessible gaming has become. People would prefer to just play older games, wait a while for the prices to drop. And lots of people have huge backlogs at this point. So when a brand new game comes out at $80, it's not only competing with the other brand new games, it's competing with every game that's basically ever come out. With all these executives being as anti-consumer as possible, I want to ask you, the viewers, to support those who are not anti-consumer, those who are pro-consumer and want to give you a good product. We've seen lots of games that come out this year that were made for gamers. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is a recent example of a game made by people who love games for people who love games. And there are lots of indie developers who also pour their hearts out to games. They might not be as high quality due to smaller budget, smaller teams, but they're still made by people who love games, and they're made for people who love games. So support me! As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I'm currently working on Beware Tomorrow. I actually paused development for multiple months. I'm getting back to development due to my job schedule changing up, and now I'm getting more free time to work on my game. So I'll give you guys an update once I have something playable. If you want to wishlist the game, link is in the description below. If you got this far, let me know what you think of the situation. I appreciate you watching this far into the video. Please leave a like and subscribe because it really helps boost the algorithm. Thank you. Take care. Salam.